In 2016, Sega and Sonic Team revealed Sonic Forces. It was explained that this was a return to form in terms of story. Even the premise was interesting. Eggman took over 99% of the world, so you had to get it back. A year and some months later, the game came out and we were sorely disappointed. After the release of Team Sonic Racing, I think it's time for a change of pace. Now, I'm not saying the series is dying or anything like that. I'm just saying that the series is long overdue for a change, or rather, a return to form. Since 2010, the franchise has changed, becoming more like a Saturday morning cartoon among other things. But enough about that, let's dive in. In the classic games, every game built off the last. This is why this game is considered one of the greatest, and why this is going to be the first one we're pulling from. The first thing we do is bring back the special stages. There are two reasons for this. One, it's a staple of the series, and two, it gives us a way of unlocking Super Sonic or just any super character. The only modern game to have one was Heroes, even though that one kind of sucked. Special stages shouldn't be repeated from other games either, like both of the Sonic 4s. And speaking of special stages, if the games have Super Sonic as an unlockable, then they should unlock a final zone as well, like Doomsday, Perfect Chaos, or the Final Hazard. These don't have to be in every game, but they make the final fights more epic. Now, something that has been abandoned since Sonic went 3D was the 2-act structure. This was sort of done in Sonic Heroes, though in that game it was never stated. I guess Generations did merge Seaside Hill and Ocean Palace. In Sonic 1 and 2, the acts were kind of the same, but in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, each act wasn't. For example, in Sandopolis, Act 1 is a straightforward desert level, while Act 2 takes place in a pyramid. Then Act 2 also adds ghosts and light gimmicks on top of that. Bottom line, stages should be like that. And speaking of 2 acts, each act should have a mini-boss and normal boss. When Sonic 3 first came out, I can only imagine kids' minds blew when they first encountered one. Now, these don't have to be the same for every character, considering the Knuckles path had some bosses that were different. Each game should have a maximum of 6 playable characters, at least in the main series. Some games try to have more than that, like the 9 and 06 and the 12 in Heroes. There are just too many characters. Now, it's cool to have characters in the story that aren't playable, like Amy in Unleashed, or Tails in every Boost game ever. One thing Adventure did that I'd mix is the multiple gameplay styles. In the classic games and modern games, there's only one: reach the goal. No beating Sonic in a race, treasure hunting, etc. If they do decide to have different styles, then it should only be for that stage, at least in the story mode. Now, something people have been saying since 2010 is that we need new writers. I also agree with this sentiment. Contact even admitted to not knowing about the series before coming on.
I'm not a Sonic fan, particularly. I mean, I don't hate Sonic, but I don't play the game. I don't know the history.
Though, that was more Sega's fault for not giving him a Bible. He also admitted that in Sonic Lost World, which was the only game they fully wrote the plot for, by the way.
In Lost World, yeah, if the ending seems a little abrupt, it is entirely on Warren and I, because that was the first time on a Sonic story that we were able to come up with the idea and write the script from beginning to end. And I think the thing maybe we just kind of took the easy way out and ran out of time. Yeah, maybe that's what we did. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Get Ian Flint or someone who worked on the Archie or IDW comics, like Aaliyah Baker or Tracy Yardley. Or even better, have them all work together like how PopTech and Graph do. Because this,
He stops you like it's his job or something.
and this,
It's like it's our job or something.
is not good writing. Seriously. How are they going to make the same joke 2 games apart? One thing I'd like to see return is grinding. I mean, after this game, it never really went away, but it's changed. In Heroes, every character did this weird spinning motion. And in the Boost games, it basically became Ratchet & Clank grinding. The grinding in SA2 was momentum based. If you hold the grind button, you have to balance. You have to balance less the faster you move. Just make rail changing more precise and we're golden. The thing a lot of fans love about SA2 is the Chow Garden. Now the Chow Garden should be a separate game, away from the main series. Like a PSN or Xbox Live game. Constantly update it and have some connectivity with the main series and you're good. There should also be a 2-player race. Unlike the one found in Sonic 2, who wins shouldn't be based on ring count. Basically make it like SA2 without the special moves, or better yet, make the special moves optional. Kind of like items in Smash Brothers. Health bars. I know that they added health bars to give the power character something to do. I'll come back to this later. Give Shadow his weapons and vehicles back. I'll come back to this later. Before I continue, we all know 06 is a dumpster fire and an incomplete mess. With that said, much like I mentioned in the last 2 sections, let's talk about Shadow and health bars. One of my favorite things about 06 is the fact that it tried to differentiate Sonic and Shadow. Shadow attacks during the homing attack, can use Chaos Spears, etc. Bringing his vehicles and weapons back would make him even more different from Sonic. The Archie comic even made a reference on how Shadow doesn't need a motorcycle, but he still has one. Just make the controls better. Something that came to Ratchet & Clank since Sega basically borrowed grinding from them. And again, this would play into health bars. Tougher enemies should take a different amount of hits to take down. For instance, Knuckles' punch should take an enemy down in 1 hit, while it takes 3 bounce attacks from Sonic to kill one. It just adds more variety in my opinion. Another thing I like about the game was the individual endings. What I mean is they don't contradict each other, or simply aren't canon. This was mainly apparent in SA2, Heroes, and Shadow. In SA2, there was no way Sonic put the fake emerald in the canon. There was no way every team fought 4 versions of the Egg Emperor at the same time, in the same location, and all those endings in Shadow obviously never happened. At the end of 06, Sonic rescues Elise, Shadow fights Mephiles, and Silver saves the future. I know it had more to do with the fact that everyone was in a different location, but that kind of consistency is still nice. I'm personally not a fan of hub worlds. In a perfect world, no game would have them. But I think it'd be nice to switch it up. After all, SA1 had hub worlds, while SA2 went from level to level. The series should switch between the two. And the hub worlds that people love the most come from Unleashed. Not too big, not too small, stuff to do. Generations was the best Sonic game I played in a long time. This was mostly due to the level design. For the modern stages, it felt like they followed Sonic 3 and Knuckles' logic and had high, middle, and low paths. This made the stages fun, especially for speedrunning. And speaking of speedrunning, the online modes, Ranking Attack, and 30-second Trial have got to return. In the current year, online is a big part of gaming, and so are leaderboards. In case you know, Ranking Attack allows players to go through the stage as fast as they can. 30-second Trials is the same thing, but only lasts 30 seconds. It marks where you stop after the time limit. There should also be an online version of the 2-player mode from Sonic Adventure 2. Another thing the series should do, or rather continue doing, is map different moves to different buttons. This was a huge issue in the Adventure era, especially when the games want you to use the light speed dash over a bottomless pit like in SA2. Now let's talk about bosses. In Sonic games, bosses typically suck. They're lazy, unimaginative, and simply boring. Generations made boss fights, barring the final one, fun. There's 3 types. You have the arena, the auto runner, and the stage. The bosses in Generations specifically remind me that Sonic's an action series. I know there are some people out there who like the boost formula, and since Sonic went 3D, Super Sonic in any super form has rarely been playable on any stage. If Sonic and every character move like they do in the Adventure era, then Super Sonic should play like the boost games. Maybe without the homing to the goal thing he did in Generations. This could show the difference in power between normal Sonic and Super Sonic. Ever since the first game, shields have been a fan favorite of the series. First, you had the normal shield, and then the elemental one. They need to return and have the same functionality, because for some reason, in 3D, they don't. All shields should be able to reflect projectiles. The normal shield should be more common than the other ones. The fire shield should protect you from fire. The thunder shield should protect you from electricity. And the bubble shield should allow the player to be able to breathe underwater. The other items that should return are the 1-ups, speed shoes, ring boxes, and invincibility. In conclusion, there are things the franchise have done and forgotten. And with almost 30 years under its belt, there's still room to improve. But that's just my thought. What are yours? Comment below. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Stay tuned, and I will see you soon.